The beaver's engine wasn't humming, it was coughing. It wasn't the rhythmic, healthy thrum that promises safety. It was the sound of metal grinding against metal without lubrication, the sound of a dying mechanism. I closed my eyes and pressed my fingers to my temples, trying to detach myself from the vibration rattling the fuselage. In my line of work, hearing is more critical than sight. A watchmaker hears the fracture in a mainspring long before it snaps. Right now, I could hear this old seaplane begging for mercy. "We're losing altitude," I stated, keeping my voice level. "Panic is a waste of energy." The pilot, Declan Vance, didn't even turn around. I could only see the broad back of his head and the tension in his shoulders beneath a leather jacket worn white at the elbows. He was wrestling the yoke like it was a living beast. "Thanks for the diagnosis, Princess," he growled through the static crackle of the headset. "If you want to help, pray to your gods. Or who do mechanics worship? The god of rust?" "Mechanics don't have gods, Mr. Vance. We have material resistance. And judging by the sound, your left cylinder is about to punch through the casing." The plane lurched downward, and my stomach jumped into my throat. Outside the clouded porthole, a gray haze swirled. The North Atlantic in November isn't water, it's liquid lead. Somewhere down there waiting for us was Ouroboros Island, a dot on the map that shouldn't exist. Silas Crow, sitting opposite me, maintained an unnatural calm. His cashmere coat looked ridiculous here, amidst the smell of aviation fuel and old upholstery. He gripped the head of his cane with gloved hands, too tight, knuckles white. The only sign of fear. "We're going down," Declan's voice hardened. "Grab onto something bolted down." The impact with the water felt like hitting a concrete wall. The plane bounced, roared, slammed down again, this time on its belly, and finally skidded, slicing through the waves. Spray blanketed the windshield in a solid sheet. When the propeller, sneezing one last time, finally halted, silence fell. Only the whistling wind and Declan's heavy breathing remained. "Welcome to hell," he threw out, unbuckling his straps. "Exits on the left, no tips required." I climbed out onto the pontoon first. The wind immediately slapped my face, icy and sharp, knocking the air from my lungs. Ouroboros towered above us, a black mass of cliffs disappearing into low clouds. No beach, just razor-sharp rocks and a narrow staircase carved directly into the stone. "The docks washed away," Declan shouted over the roar of the surf. He stood on the wing, gauging the distance to the shore. "We'll have to jump." He tossed our backpacks onto a rocky ledge. Silas, to my surprise, moved nimbly for his age. His cane clicked against the stone, and he vaulted over the black water with the grace of an old spider. My turn. I looked at the dark, churning abyss between the pontoon and the rock. 5 feet. A trivial distance in a gym. A chasm when you have a tool roll weighing 20 pounds on your shoulder and the rocks are slick with slime. "Give me your hand." Declan was already on the shore. He extended a palm, broad, rough, stained with oil. I hesitated for a second. I was used to relying on tools, not people. People break more often. "Move it, Reed. The wave's coming." I jumped. My foot slipped on the wet granite. I felt my balance shifting, the weight of the bag pulling me backward into the freezing water. The yank was strong enough to pop my shoulder. Declan caught me by the bag strap and my forearm, jerking me forward, slamming me into his chest. I smelled wet wool, tobacco, and body heat.
"Gotcha,"
he breathed into my ear. His grip was iron. I pulled away, straightening my coat. My heart was hammering somewhere in my throat, but I forced my face to remain stone.
"Thank you."
"Don't mention it. You still owe me for the flight. Corpses can't pay."
The beaver's engine wasn't humming, it was coughing. It wasn't the rhythmic, healthy thrum that promises safety. It was the sound of metal grinding against metal without lubrication, the sound of a dying mechanism. I closed my eyes and pressed my fingers to my temples, trying to detach myself from the vibration rattling the fuselage. In my line of work, hearing is more critical than sight. A watchmaker hears the fracture in a mainspring long before it snaps. Right now, I could hear this old seaplane begging for mercy. "We're losing altitude," I stated, keeping my voice level. "Panic is a waste of energy." The pilot, Declan Vance, didn't even turn around. I could only see the broad back of his head and the tension in his shoulders beneath a leather jacket worn white at the elbows. He was wrestling the yoke like it was a living beast. "Thanks for the diagnosis, Princess," he growled through the static crackle of the headset. "If you want to help, pray to your gods. Or who do mechanics worship? The god of rust?" "Mechanics don't have gods, Mr. Vance. We have material resistance. And judging by the sound, your left cylinder is about to punch through the casing." The plane lurched downward, and my stomach jumped into my throat. Outside the clouded porthole, a gray haze swirled. The North Atlantic in November isn't water, it's liquid lead. Somewhere down there, waiting for us, was Ouroboros Island, a dot on the map that shouldn't exist. Silas Crow, sitting opposite me, maintained an unnatural calm. His cashmere coat looked ridiculous here, amidst the smell of aviation fuel and old upholstery. He gripped the head of his cane with gloved hands, too tight, knuckles white. the only sign of fear. "We're going down," Declan's voice hardened. "Grab onto something bolted down." The impact with the water felt like hitting a concrete wall. The plane bounced, roared, slammed down again, this time on its belly, and finally skidded, slicing through the waves. Spray blanketed the windshield in a solid sheet. When the propeller, sneezing one last time, finally halted, silence fell. Only the whistling wind and Declan's heavy breathing remained. "Welcome to hell," he threw out, unbuckling his straps. "Exits on the left, no tips required." We climbed the stairs. The wind up here was quieter, but the air felt thick, heavy. Before us stood the gate. It wasn't just a barrier, it was a masterpiece. 10 feet of wrought iron and bronze, grown into the rock. The bars intertwined, forming a complex pattern of gears and clock pendulums. In the center was a massive disc with 3 concentric rings. No keyhole, no electronics. "Well, Miss Reed," Silas tapped the bronze disc with his cane. The sound was dull, dense. I stepped closer. My fingers reached for the metal instinctively, cold, rough with corrosion. I pulled the loop on its chain from my pocket. "This isn't just a lock," I murmured, examining the seams of the rings. "It's a variation of a Vigenère cipher, translated into mechanics. See these notches?" "I see a pile of rusty scrap," Declan scoffed, leaning against the rock and lighting a cigarette. The flame flickered in the wind. "An explosion will damage the internal drive," I cut him off without turning. "If my father designed this like his music boxes, a brute force attempt will trigger the tumblers. The door will jam forever, or it will shoot something unpleasant at you." I took an oil can with a fine needle tip and an awl from my bag. "I need silence." The world narrowed to the spotlight of my headlamp. I dripped oil into the gaps between the rings. The liquid was absorbed greedily, like blood into dry earth. I inserted the awl into the groove of the first ring and pressed. Nothing. Seized. "Salt," I whispered. "Sea salt has cemented the mechanism." I pressed my ear against the cold metal, closed my eyes, visualized the schematic. 3 discs, teeth engaging. Where is the friction? I began tapping the disc with the handle of my screwdriver. Tap, tap, clink. There, a hollow in the 3rd sector. That's the pawl holding the spring. "Mr. Vance," I called out, "I need your hands." Declan approached, flicking his cigarette away. "Giving up?" "Press here," I pointed to the edge of the outer ring. "Hard, and hold it until I say stop. I need to take the tension off the axle." He braced his palms against the rough metal. I saw the veins bulge in his forearms. He was strong, I'd give him that. The mechanism groaned, yielding a millimeter. That was enough. I turned the inner ring. Click. 1. I turned the middle one. The metal screeched, resisting 20 years of neglect. Click. 2. "Hold it," I exhaled, feeling sweat trickle down my back despite the cold. Just a little more. I aligned the symbols. Hourglass, skull, key. Deep inside the rock, something answered. The sound was like a whale's sigh, a low, vibrating hum that traveled through the soles of my boots, straight up my spine. Declan jumped back, hand reaching for the holster at his belt. The gates didn't swing open, they retracted inward, sliding into grooves in the rock like a camera aperture. The grinding noise was deafening. The path was open. Beyond the gates began an alley of dead, blackened trees leading to the house. Black-red Manor loomed over the island like a gargoyle. Spires, towers, dark voids of windows. "Charming," Silas said dryly, stepping forward. "Just like home." I was about to pack my tools when my gaze caught the upper window to Central Tower. For a split second, a light flared there. Yellow, warm, electric light. And then it vanished. "Did you see that?" I asked. "What?" Declan was staring into the darkness of the alley, his hand still on the grip of his gun. "A light in the window." "There's been no one here for 20 years, Clara." Silas's voice drifted from the darkness ahead. "The power plant is down. You imagined it. Tired eyes." I looked at the black window. I knew what I saw, and I knew something else. The gate mechanism had been oiled from the inside. Fresh grease. The island was expecting us, and someone had just wound the spring.
The road to the house resembled the throat of a sick animal. Black, twisted oak branches closed overhead, forming a tunnel where the air was stagnant and stale. But the worst part was what hid in the tangle of roots. "Are those pipes?" Declan asked, shining his flashlight on the verge. He was right. Copper tubes and rubber-braided cables protruded from the earth like veins. The ivy didn't just wrap around them, it seemed to feed on them. Nature and machinery here didn't fight. They had fused into an ugly symbiosis. I adjusted my bag strap, trying not to look around. My brain automatically tried to build a schematic of what lay underground, but the scale didn't add up.
To power such a network, you'd need a generator the size of a locomotive. Keep up, Silas threw over his shoulder. He walked surprisingly briskly, tapping his cane on protruding roots as if testing their strength. Blackwood Manor met us with silence, a hulk of dark stone, Victorian Gothic disfigured by additions. The left wing was glass, a huge conservatory, opaque with grime. The right wing ended in that same clock tower, its spire lost in the fog. We stepped onto the porch. The wood underfoot didn't creak. I expected boarded-up windows and piles of debris, but the massive oak door looked like it had been varnished yesterday. The lion-head handle gleamed. "Shall I?" Silas stepped back, making an inviting gesture. Declan drew his gun. "I'll go first." He pushed the leaf. It gave way softly, without a single sound, as if suspended on a magnetic cushion rather than hinges. It felt wrong. Old houses should groan. Silence in mechanics is a sign of either perfect maintenance or a trap. We stepped inside. The vestibule was immense. Declan's flashlight beam picked out a wide staircase with carved banisters disappearing into the gloom of the second floor. Furniture draped in white sheets like ghosts. And clocks. Hundreds of clocks. Grandfather clocks, wall clocks, mantel clocks. They stood on consoles, hung between paintings, piled on shelves. And they were all running. The air vibrated with their ticking. It wasn't a chaotic noise, but a complex polyrhythm. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tock, tick. The sound wormed its way under the skin, adjusting your heartbeat to its pace. "What time is it?" Declan whispered. I looked at the nearest dial. The hand showed 1400. The neighbor showed 0315. The third, 2240. "Time doesn't matter here," I said, approaching a grandfather clock. The pendulum swung with hypnotic precision. Or it does, but we don't know the code. These aren't chronometers, they are timers. Timers for what? Declan lowered his gun but didn't holster it. "Life cycles," Silas's voice echoed under the vaults. He removed his gloves and placed them on a dusty table. "Archibald, your father, was obsessed with the idea that time is the only resource that cannot be replenished. He wanted to stretch it." I wasn't listening to his philosophy. My attention was drawn to something more prosaic. At the foot of the stairs stood a coat rack. On it hung a solitary tweed coat. My legs carried me there on their own. I knew this item. I remembered hiding in its folds as a child, when father worked in his workshop. Coarse wool, worn collar. I reached out. The fabric was cold, but not damp. 20 years in an unheated house on an island amidst storms would have turned wool to dust. Mold would have eaten it in 2 winters. But the coat was intact. I brought the sleeve to my face and inhaled. The world tilted. The scent of cherry tobacco and old cologne. Faint but distinct. My father's scent. Not 20 years ago. A couple of days ago at most. "Clara," Declan's voice sounded wary. "What is it?" "He was here." My voice trembled, and I hated myself for it. I gripped the fabric in my fist, trying to regain control. "This coat, it smells like him. Fresh tobacco."
That's impossible. I spun around. A man cannot survive here alone for 20 years. Food, medicine, heat, it defies the laws of survival. "You think narrowly, Miss Reed," Silas said softly. "You think of the survival of the body. Your father dealt in the preservation of essence." At that moment, the front door swung open from a gust of wind, but immediately slammed shut with force against the jamb. Outside, the storm raged, but here, inside, there was no draft. "I need to check the perimeter," Declan said sharply. He clearly disliked this conversation. "I'll check the hangar I saw on the map. If there are tools or fuel, we can use them. And you two, try not to touch anything." He vanished into the darkness of a side corridor leading to the service exit. Silas and I were left alone under the crossfire of hundreds of dials. He sat in an armchair, not even brushing off the dusty cover, watching me like a collector watching a rare butterfly. "You look like him," he said. "The same hands, the same gaze searching for a flaw. You want to know why I hired you specifically? Not just because of blood. You hired me because I'm the best restorer on the East Coast," I snapped, continuing to scan the hall. I was looking for logic. Wires, ventilation. Where was the heat coming from? The house was about 60 degrees, though outside it was freezing. And because you have the second part of the diary. True, but there is a third reason. This house, it won't let a stranger in. It needs Reed blood or a Reed mind. About 20 minutes passed. I managed to find a fireplace, cold but swept clean, and a strange panel on the wall with 9 keyholes. Declan returned silently. He emerged from the shadows so unexpectedly I flinched. He looked bad. His face had gone gray, lips pressed into a thin line. Water dripped from his jacket, forming a puddle on the parquet. "Well?" Silas asked without getting up. "Find any treasure?" Declan looked at me. There was a mix of pity and hardness in his gaze. "I found the hangar," he said hollowly. "Your father's de Haviland is there, Clara." My heart skipped a beat. Is it operational? Can we fly out?" "No. It hasn't flown in a very long time." Declan stepped close to me. He smelled of cold and wet metal. "The official report 20 years ago said the plane was lost at sea. Pilot orientation, right?" "Yes." They lied. The plane is in the hangar, and it didn't crash on landing. Declan lowered his voice. "The fuselage is riddled. 7.62 caliber bullet holes. He was shot down as he was landing. Someone fired at him from the ground." I froze. Father didn't go missing. He was hunted. Who? I exhaled. "I don't know, but whoever shot didn't want him to leave." And clang. The sound was so loud I crouched, covering my head. It was the sound of a 1-ton deadbolt falling into place. It came from the front door. All 3 of us turned. The door we entered through was sealed. Steel bolts had extended around the perimeter of the frame, locking the exit dead. Simultaneously, locks clicked on the windows. Steel shutters hidden within the walls crashed down, cutting us off from the outside world. The darkness became absolute. Only the beams of our flashlights darted around the hall. The ticking of the clock stopped. In the ensuing silence, a click echoed, and an old gramophone horn in the corner came to life. The needle hissed. The voice was distorted, scratchy, but I would know it anywhere. "Dad." "Hello, Clara. If you are hearing this, it means I have lost and you have found the way. Forgive me. I wanted to give you time, but I only gave you a riddle. The house has awakened. You have 6 hours before the purge protocol sterilizes the island. Find Kronos, and do not trust the one who came with you." Click. The recording cut off, and immediately the clock started again. But now they take faster, much faster. 6 hours? Declan's voice was calm, but he had already flicked the safety off his gun. "What is the purge protocol?" "I think," I replied, watching the hands of the nearest clock race forward, devouring seconds. "It's my father's way of saying we all die if I don't solve his final puzzle. Do not trust the one who came with you," Silas repeated slowly, looking at Declan. Declan shifted his gaze to Silas. The barrels of their stares met. We were trapped.
6 hours, Silas repeated, checking his pocket watch. Curious, your father always loved theatrical effects. I ignored his tone. Fear sat like an icy needle in my gut, but panic was a luxury I couldn't afford. I approached the evacuation plan hanging by the elevator. Yellowed paper, a blueprint of the building. West Wing. I traced the corridor line with my finger. That was his laboratory. If the Kronos or a shutdown console exists anywhere, it's there. Why not the basement? Declan asked. He had already barricaded the front door with an old commode, though it was pointless. The steel pins held it tighter than any weld. Because Father hated basements. He said precision mechanisms don't like dampness. The lab has to be upstairs, closer to the light. We moved into the left corridor. It was warmer here. The carpet muffled our steps, but the walls were strange. They were lined with wooden panels drilled with hundreds of tiny holes. Acoustic insulation? Silas suggested. Or resonators, I corrected. We entered a long gallery. Along the walls stood pedestals with mechanical dolls, automata, a Pierrot with a lute, a dancer, a blacksmith with a hammer. Their eyes, glass marbles, gleamed dully in our flashlight beams. They were all frozen in unnatural poses, covered in a layer of dust that looked like gray fur. Creepy place, Declan muttered. Reminds me of a wax museum where someone got murdered. Don't touch anything, I warned. Automata are often connected to linkages under the floor. Could be an alarm. Silas walked slightly behind. His interest in mechanics outweighed his caution. He stopped by an automata shaped like an owl. Exquisite work, brass feathers. He reached out and touched the bird's wing. Click. The sound was dry and sharp, like a breaking bone. The owl blinked. Then it turned its head 180 degrees and emitted a piercing metallic shriek. The floor beneath our feet trembled. Back, Declan barked, spinning around. But it was too late. Behind us, cutting off the path to the hall, a heavy grate crashed down from the ceiling. Ahead, at the end of the corridor, another one dropped, and then the walls began to move.
At first, it was slow, the hum of motors deep below. The perforated panels started creeping toward each other. The corridor, 3 meters wide, began to shrink. "Silas, what did you do?" "I barely touched it." The old man looked pale. He pressed his back against the grate, holding his cane out as if planning to fence with the wall. I darted to the nearest panel. Wood. There had to be a mechanism underneath. "Declan, light here!" Declan aims the beam. I grabbed a chisel from my bag and drove it hard into the gap between the panels. The wood cracked. I ripped the cladding toward me. Behind it, the maw of the machine was revealed. Massive worm gears rotating slowly and inexorably. The grease had dried. The metal screeched. "Can you stop it?" Declan was beside me. The corridor had narrowed to 2 meters. Frantic! "I need to get to the clutch." I was frantically sweeping my headlamp beam inside the wall. "It's too deep. I need a lever." I tried to jam my pry bar in, but the gears moved with monstrous force. The bar was ripped from my hands, and a second later, I heard the hardened steel snap, chewed up by the mechanism like a matchstick. "Clara." Declan's voice turned harsh. "We don't have time for finesse." The walls were 5 feet apart now. The automata began falling from their pedestals, shattering. Piero lost his head. It rolled to my feet. "I see the brake," I shouted. "That lever with the red mark, but I can't reach. The gear is in the way." Declan looked at the rotating shaft, teeth the size of fists, meshed and unmeshed, grinding space itself. "I'll hold it." "What? No, it'll tear your arms off." "Go." He didn't argue. He acted. Declan took off his jacket, wrapped it around his left arm, and with a growl shoved his forearm right into the maw of the mechanism, between the shaft and the housing wall. He braced his feet against the floor, his back against one moving wall and his hands against the other. The mechanism howled. Declan became the strut. "Move!" he roared, his face flushed red, veins on his neck bulging like ropes. I dove into the niche under his arm. The smell of sweat and old oil hit my nose. I saw his knees shaking. The wall was pressing on him with hydraulic force. I heard his joints popping. If he gave up, I would be smeared inside the wall. I reached for the lever. My finger slipped on the oil. "Come on." Declan groaned, a sound full of pain. "Faster, Clara!" I grabbed the lever with both hands. It wouldn't budge. Rust. "The god of rust, and mad as a sacrifice." I braced my foot against the transmission casing and pulled with my entire body weight. The lever gave way with a grind. Bam! The mechanism halted. We descended into the bowels of the house, down a spiral staircase that trembled with every step. The air here was different. Thick, oily, tasting of sulfur. If the crypt's cold reigned above, down here, a volcano slumbered.
"Boiler room."
Declan stated, illuminating the space below.
"Or the engine room of the Titanic."
The chamber was cyclopean. In the center towered a machine, a tangle of copper pipes, pressure gauges, pistons, and gears, occupying a space the size of a small house. It wasn't just a boiler. It was the heart of Ouroboros. "Closed cycle steam drive," I whispered, feeling professional awe. "Father-modified Watt system. This thing can run for centuries without refueling on geothermal energy."
"Then why is it dark?"
Silas asked, fastidiously stepping over a puddle of black oil. "Because it's sleeping. The valves are shut. Someone stopped the heart manually." I walked to the control panel. No electronics, just levers, wheels, and glass tubes containing mercury. On the main gauge, the needle lay at 0, but the pipes were hot. The pressure was there. It just had no outlet. "We need to start the generator," I said, turning to the men. "Without electricity, we can't get into the lab. The elevators are locked, and we can't open the airlocks to get off the island."
"What do we do?"
Declan stepped up to me. He held his left arm tight against his chest. The bandage was already dark with ichor, but there was no weakness in his movements, just a rigid economy of effort. "See those 4 valves around the perimeter?" I pointed to huge cast iron wheels. "It's a harmonic start. They need to be turned simultaneously to equalize pressure in the chambers. If we get it wrong, steam will burst out and boil us alive."
Silas chuckled. "I don't pay you to turn nuts, Miss Reed."
"We have 2 pairs of working hands," I snapped. "You, Silas, take the north valve. Declan, south. I'll be on the distributor, watching the pressure."
"And the fourth?"
"The fourth is automatic if we synchronize the first 3. It was like tuning a piano that could explode. I stood at the main console, placing my hands on the levers. "Listen to me. Turn slowly. We need a pure tone. If you hear whistling or grinding, stop. Go." The metal groaned. Silas, to my surprise, leaned into his wheel with frenzy. His expensive suit strained at the seams, but he turned it.
Declan worked with one arm and his body, teeth clenched. Hiss! Steam began entering the system. The gauges twitched. Declan, a bit faster. Silas, hold it, I commanded, watching the mercury crawl up. Pressure in the third circuit is jumping. One more turn. Rhythm. I heard the machine's rhythm. Thump, 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 thump. It was waking up. Now, I shouted, and yanked the main switch down. The valve wheels spun on their own, gathering momentum. The massive flywheel in the center of the hull, which had seemed part of the wall before, began to move. Slowly at first, then faster, blurring into a smear of copper and steel. Turbines hummed. Ceiling lamps flared, first a dim orange, then blinding white light. Heat hit us in a wave. Declan exhaled, leaning his good arm against the railing.
But instead of triumph, we got something else. Along with the light, the PA system engaged. On the wall above the console, a row of old CRT monitors sprang to life. A face appeared on the screens. My father. He was sitting in his study, looking straight into the camera. He looked older than I remembered, gaunt, with a mad glint in his eyes. But he wasn't scared. He was smiling. "Hello, Silas," Father said from the screen. The image flickered, but the sound was clear. Silas froze, staring at the screen, mesmerized. "I knew you would come. You never knew how to let go of trophies. You thought you stole the Chronos formula from me 20 years ago? You stole a dummy. The real project was here. I built it, not to extend life, but to contain death." Father leaned into the camera. "Did you bring my daughter? I hoped she would be smarter. But if she is here, forgive me, Clara. I couldn't leave the key in a world containing men like Crow. Now the trap has snapped shut. The generator is running. The purge protocol is irreversible. You are not guests. You are fuel." The screen went dark. The silence in the machine room became deafening, despite the roar of the flywheel. I slowly turned to Silas. "You knew him." It wasn't a question. "You aren't just a collector. We were partners." Silas's voice was icy. All his feigned politeness vanished. 20 years ago, we worked on Project Aegis, biological immortality. Your father turned coward. He ran with the prototype and my share of the funding. He said you stole the formula. History is written by the victors, girl. Silas pointed his cane at us. Now I saw the tip wasn't just decoration. It was a barrel. Single shot, but lethal. Now listen, we are going to the lab. You will find Kronos, or I will shoot your pilot in the knee, and we will leave him here to cook in the steam.
"Quiet. I'm sorry," he whispered, barely audible. "For what? For bringing me to a killer? For knowing this was a one-way ticket?" He didn't look at me. His gaze scanned the space, looking for an exit. "I owe the syndicate 200 grand. They promised to wipe the debt if I delivered Grow here. I didn't know about you. Didn't know about your father. I just wanted to buy my life back." I looked at his profile. Hard, stubborn, tired. Fresh blood was seeping through on his arm. He was a mercenary, yes. He sold me out. But right now, in this hell of steam and lies, he was the only reality I could lean on. "You can still buy it back," I whispered, looking at the schematic of pipes running along the walls. "See that valve with red stripe above Silas's head? Yeah. That's the emergency pressure release. If you breach it, the jet of steam will pet a man in half." Declan smiled faintly with the corner of his mouth. "I read you loud and clear, Gear Princess." The elevator stopped with a clang. We weren't in a lab. We were in a hall that wasn't on the map. In the center of the room stood a huge glass cylinder filled with cloudy liquid. Inside floated something, humanoid, and it opened its eyes. It wasn't Father, and it wasn't Lily. It was Kronos. I approached the cylinder, my legs feeling like cotton. The glass was thick, borosilicate, capable of withstanding ocean floor pressure. Inside, suspended in amber liquid, floated a girl. She was no older than 16. Pale skin, dark hair floating around her face like seaweed. Thin silver cables ran into her temples, neck, and spine. They didn't pierce the skin. They seemed to grow out of it. Her chest rose and fell, barely perceptibly. Lily, I exhaled. The sound of my own voice felt alien. It was her, and not her. My sister should have been 34, like me, almost. But this girl was frozen in time. I pressed my palm against the cold glass. What did you do to her, Dad? He preserved her. Silas's voice behind me sounded almost reverent. Aegis, the perfect symbiosis of organic matter and mechanics. Your father found a way to stop cellular decay by replacing the nervous system with superconductor alloy conduits. She doesn't age. She doesn't get sick. She is a perpetual motion machine in human form. She is not a machine. I spun around, feeling anger burn away the fear. She is a human being. She is my sister. Right now, she is a container holding a patent worth billions. Silas raised his cane, aiming at my chest. Open it. I looked at the control panel at the base of the cylinder. There was no keypad, only a recess of complex geometric shape. A hexagon with inscribed arcs. My hand darted to my neck. The loop, the old one in the brass frame Father gave me before he vanished. I had worn it for 20 years, thinking it was just a tool. I knew every scratch on the rim, and now I saw the pattern of scratches and ridges on the brass matched the lock perfectly. The key is around your neck, Silas noted. I knew it. Archibald was sentimental. Insert it. I took off the loop. The metal was warm for my body. Declan's gaze met mine. He stood slightly to Silas's left, gripping a heavy pipe wrench in his good hand, one he had quietly snagged from a fire safety board while we walked. He was waiting. I slowly brought the loop to the lock. If I open this, the fluid will drain, I said loudly, trying to keep my voice steady. The sudden pressure change will kill her. I have a cryo container, Silas dismissed. Don't stall, Clara, or I will shoot your pilot in the other arm, just for symmetry. I inserted the loop into the slot. The mechanism clicked. Tumblers inside the cylinder began to rotate. Now, I whispered with just my lips, watching the reflection in the glass. I didn't turn the key all the way. I yanked it back out and threw myself to the floor. Declan! Declan acted instantly. He didn't rush Silas. The distance was too great. He spun and hurled the pipe wrench upward into the tangle of pipes near the ceiling. The sound of metal on metal rang like a gong. The wrench sheared off the emergency release valve I had pointed out to him in the boiling room. Whoosh! A jet of superheated steam burst out with the roar of a jet engine. A white cloud instantly cut us off from Silas. Visibility dropped to 0. The heat hit my face. Move! Declan grabbed me by the waist, hauling me off the floor. A shot rang out. A bullet sparked off the metal floor an inch from my leg. Then another shot, the sound of shattering glass. Not the capsule, something else. Not to the elevator, Declan shouted in my ear. He's there! We sprinted into the darkness of a side passage. The steam seared our lungs. We ran blind, guided only by the walls. The corridor sloped downward at a sharp angle. Warning! The mechanical voice of the PA system overrode the roar of the steam. Seal breach in Sector 4. Isolation protocol activated. Behind us, a heavy steel bulkhead began to descend from the corridor ceiling. Faster! Declan shoved me forward. We slipped under the falling slab at the last second. It crashed down, sealing off the white cloud of steam and Silas's screams. But we didn't have time to exhale. Ahead, 30 feet away, a second bulkhead slammed down. We were in a concrete sack, a corridor 30 feet long, a dead end. Damn it. Declan punched the wall. He slid to the floor, breathing heavily. The bandage on his arm was soaked with blood again. His face was gray with pain and heat. I ran to the blast door. No handles, just smooth steel and a flashing red light overhead. It's an emergency airlock, I stated, feeling cold dread grip my stomach. The system thinks there's a fire or biohazard leak in the lab. It cut us off. Is Silas back there? Declan asked. He's on the other side of the steam, with Lily. The speaker above the door crackled to life. Impressive maneuver, Miss Reed. Silas's voice was distorted. I could hear coughing. You ruined my suit, but you did the main thing. You unlocked the mechanism. The capsule is opening. I went cold. I hadn't turned the key all the way. Or had I? No. The mechanism had memorized the code. I am taking the specimen, Silas continued, and I will leave you a small gift. This airlock is used for flushing waste into the ocean. Unfortunately, the pumps only work on intake. A gurgling sound came from beneath the floor. I looked down. Dark, icy water began rising through the grates. He's drowning us, Declan said calmly. Too calmly.
I rushed to the airlock control panel. Smashed. Silas's bullet, the second one I heard, had hit the communication node on the corridor wall. Wires sparked. The water was rising fast. It already covered our ankles. Freezing Atlantic water. Clara, Declan called. I was frantically rummaging through my bag. Screwdriver, wire cutters, anything to short the circuit. I'll open it. I have to. It's hydraulic. There must be a manual override. Clara! He grabbed my arm with his good hand and spun me toward him. The water reached our knees. The cold was breathtaking. In the cramped space of the airlock, under the blinking red emergency light, we were alone. We have no tools, he said, looking me in the eye. Look at the door. It's cast steel. You can't hack it with a screwdriver. So what do you suggest? My voice broke into a scream. Wait until the water hits the ceiling? No. He reached into the pocket of his wet trousers. I suggest using what we have left. He pulled out the flare gun, a single cartridge. Magnesium flare, he said. Burns even underwater. Burning temperature, 4,000 degrees. He looked at the door hinges. If I fire point blank at the bottom hinge, the metal will melt. But in such a confined space, the flare will burn up all the oxygen. I finished for him and blind us, and the shockwave could rupture our eardrums. Not much choice. He cocked the hammer. Water was touching our thighs. Either we drown or we risk burning. You ready? I looked at him, at his scar, at the stubborn line of his mouth. He wasn't giving up. He was about to blow up the world for a chance to take a breath. I nodded and squeezed my eyes shut tight, burying my face in his shoulder, covering my ears with my hands. Do it.
The flash wasn't white. It was so bright, it seemed black. The world vanished. Only an unbearable shriek in my ears and heat that scorched my face despite the freezing water remained. Magnesium burned, devouring oxygen. I felt the vacuum press against my eardrums. The water around us boiled. Through purple spots dancing before my eyes, I saw the bottom hinge of the door turn into a glowing puddle of metal. Steel flowed like wax. Push! Declan's shout I felt through my ribcage rather than heard. We threw our weight against the door simultaneously. I drove my shoulder into the superheated metal, not feeling the burn due to adrenaline. The door groaned and gave way. We weren't just washed out, we were spit out. The torrent of water accumulated in the airlock hit us in the back, knocking us off our feet. We tumbled into darkness, rolling in icy foam. I slammed against a wall, then something iron. I lost orientation. Up, down, my lungs burned. I swallowed salty, filthy water. Someone's hand grabbed me by the coat collar and yanked me up. Breathe, I gasped, greedily gasping for air. Darkness, absolute, thick darkness. We were in a tunnel. The current was weaker here. Water reached our waists. You alive? Declan's voice rasped. Yes, I wheezed, spitting water. Where are we? Sewer, judging by the smell, or drainage system. We waited blindly, holding on to slime-slicked walls. The cold no longer bit. It had seeped inside, becoming part of the skeleton. My teeth chattered so hard it echoed in my temples. Hypothermia. We had about 15 minutes before muscles failed and consciousness drifted. Need heat, I whispered. My legs barely obeyed. I see, I think, a grate. Declan pulled me along. Faint light. We climbed out into a small circular room. It was an old pumping station. Rusty pipes disappeared into the ceiling. In the corner, behind a floor grate, something hummed hot, a branch line from the very boiler room we had activated. It was dry here and relatively warm, about 70 degrees. Declan literally collapsed onto the concrete floor, dragging me down with him. No flashlights. The only light came from a red emergency bulb above the entrance, covered in a century of crime. In this crimson gloom, we looked like corpses. We
his face. His hand shook. The wound on his forearm had reopened, blood mixed with dirty water on his shirt. He took your sister, and I spent the last shell to drive us into a rat hole. Shut up. I tried to stand, but my knees buckled. I crawled to him. Take off your jacket and shirt. Clara, this isn't the time. Take off everything wet now. My voice cracked into a shriek. If we stay in these rags, we die of hypothermia in 10 minutes. Physics, Declan. Water conducts heat away 20 times faster than air. He obeyed, struggled out of his soaked clothes. I did the same, stripping down to wet underwear. My skin burned from the cold. Every movement was torture. We pressed against each other, sitting by the warm pipe. I wrapped my arms around him, feeling violent shivers rack his body. My cheek lay on his chest. I heard his heart, a skipped, uneven rhythm. Forgive me, he whispered into my hair. I should have stopped him. I'm a mercenary, damn it. It's my job, and I let an old man with a cane outplay me. I lifted my head and looked at him. In the red light, the scar above his brow looked like a black rift. You didn't lose. You got me out of the airlock. Silas counted on us drowning. We are the variable he wrote off. That's our strength. I touched his injured arm, gently with fingertips. The skin around the wound was hot. Infection. Need to clean it, I said, but didn't move. His body heat was more important right now. It was the only anchor to reality. Declan covered my hand with his good one. His fingers were rough, calloused, but the touch was tender. You're strange, Clara Reed, he said quietly. I sold you for debts. I dragged you into this hell, and you keep me warm and talk about variables. Why? Because mechanisms break, Declan. I closed my eyes, absorbing his warmth, even the most perfect ones. The question isn't whether you broke. The question is whether you can be repaired. And what's the diagnosis? Repairable. And then he leaned in and pressed his forehead against mine. In that moment, there was no book romance, no music, no butterflies. There was the smell of stagnant water, blood, and sweat. There was the shivering of two frozen bodies, but there was also a sense of absolute ringing unity. We were two parts that had finally clicked into place, locking together to avoid falling into the abyss. We sat like that for maybe an hour. The shivering subsided. Breathing evened out. All right. Declan pulled away first. Clarity returned to his eyes. The hard, cold clarity of a predator. We're alive. We're warm. What's next? Silas is upstairs. He has the girl. The specimen. He has a gun. I forced my brain to engage. Emotions in a box. Logic on the table. He can't fly out, I said confidently. Storm Isolde is peaking. Winds are 90 miles an hour. The seaplane would smash against the waves on takeoff. My father knew this. The island is isolated, so he waits for the storm to pass? No, Silas doesn't wait. He has Chronos, but he doesn't have, I stumbled, instructions. The biocontainer is unstable outside the power grid. He needs to transmit data to his scientists so they can prepare transport, or call in a heavy chopper that can land in a gale. Communication. Declan nodded. He needs an antenna, the clock tower, we said simultaneously. There was an old radio beacon at the top, I recalled the blueprints. And there's a cargo hoist. Declan stood up. He started dressing. The clothes were still damp, but no longer freezing. He moved differently now. No more wasted motion. He walked to the wall where a fire station hung, long looted, but something remained. A long metal boat hook with a sharp tip. Declan weighed it in his hand. Not a rifle, sure, but enough to punch through a skull. I looked around. My tool bag had drowned. I had only the loop around my neck, now useless as a key, but valuable as a memory, and a small screwdriver I had shoved into my jeans pocket. And my mind. He thinks we're dead, I said, wringing out my hair. That's our main advantage. We'll climb up the service shafts, beat him there, and when he steps out onto the tower roof, we throw him off. Declan finished. I was going to say disarm him, I corrected, but I like your version better. We moved toward the exit of the pump room. Ahead lay a ladder leading up into the darkness of the shaft. The dark night of the soul was over. The hunt began.
We crawled inside the Leviathan's spine. The service shaft leading to the top of the clock tower was narrow, filthy and vibrating. The latter, rungs driven into concrete half a century ago, crumbled under our fingers. With every meter of ascent, the air grew thinner, but the hum of the mechanism grew louder. "Don't look down," wheezed Declan, crawling below me. His breathing was heavy, whistling. I knew every movement with his left arm caused him hellish pain, but he stubbornly clung to life. "I'm looking at the mechanism," I replied, pulling myself up another rung. "This whole house, it's one giant transmission. To our right, behind chain link mesh, spun the main drive shaft. A steel pillar a meter in diameter, coated in a layer of oil. It went infinitely up and down, rotating with nauseating, inexorable force. It powered elevators, clocks, locks, and it led us to our goal. Suddenly, the shaft was illuminated by yellow light. From below, from the cargo platform, an elevator cab was rising. We pressed against the wall, squeezing into the shadows of cable trays. The elevator floated past us 10 feet away. It was an open cargo cage. Inside stood Silas. He had shed his ruined coat and remained in a vest. He looked impeccable, save for the mad glint in his eyes. With one hand he leaned on his cane, with the other he steadied a mobile cryo container, a silver box on wheels, looking like a coffin. Green LEDs blinked on the container's lid. Lily was there. But Silas wasn't alone. In the corner of the cage stood a figure. At first I took it for a man in a raincoat, but when the elevator jerked, the figure swayed with a distinct mechanical creak. The face, a smooth porcelain mask. Hands, steel manipulators. One of the gallery automata. Silas had reprogrammed it or was simply using it as a porter. "He's taking her to the roof," I whispered, watching the bottom of the elevator recede. "There's a docking pad for airships or a helicopter." "We have little time." Declan tried to speed up, but slipped. His foot lost purchase, and he dangled by one arm. The boat hook strapped to his back banged hollowly against the rungs. I grabbed his collar, yanking upward. "Hold on. I'm slowing you down." He looked up at me. In the dim light of the shaft, his eyes seemed black. "Clara, you're faster without me. Leave me here. I'll cover the rear if he sends his doll down." "Shut up." I braced my foot on a rung, creating leverage. "We are 2 gears in mesh. If you remove one, the second just spins idly. Give me your hand."
We continued the climb. The shaft ended in a dead end. The hatch was welded shut. The only path lay through the mechanism. We emerged onto a maintenance balcony. Before us opened a panorama of the tower's guts. It was chaos of rotating wheels, chains, and pendulums. To reach the roof level, we had to cross this meat grinder. "Jump across those beams?" Declan pointed with the boat hook to a series of narrow catwalks hanging over the abyss of gears. "No. Motion sensors there." I pointed to tiny photoelectric lenses. "Father didn't like rats. If we go there, it triggers the dump system." "Then where?" I looked at the massive cogwheels rotating right in front of us. They moved slowly, rhythmically. Clang, 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 clang. "We go on them." "Are you serious?" "It's the main transmission. It's the strongest, and no sensors because no one in their right mind would climb there." I stepped onto an oily tooth of the wheel as it passed the balcony. The metal shuddered. I found my balance, spreading my arms. "Come on, jump when the tooth is horizontal." Declan jumped. His landing was hard. He slipped, but I managed to grab his belt. We rode up, straddling the wheel like a carousel in the underworld. Below us, 150 feet down, millstones ground in the darkness. One wrong step, and we'd be nothing but a wet stain and metal shavings. We transferred to the next wheel, then onto a chain drive. My brain worked in turbo mode. Velocity vector, slope angle, friction coefficient. I felt no fear. I was in my element. I understood these machines. They weren't evil. They were just doing their job. And then we hit a problem. The path upward was blocked by a flywheel, a solid disc of steel spinning at breakneck speed. It cut off access to the final ladder. There was a gap between it and the wall, about 15 inches, but it opened only once every 3 seconds when a counterweight cutout passed in the disc. Whir.
"Won't make it."
Declan shouted, judging the speed. "It'll slice us in half." "Need to jam it." "With what? It weighs a ton." I looked around. Next to us ran the elevator counterweight chain. The elevator with Silas was already above us, almost at the goal. The chain was taut as a bowstring. "The hook!" I yelled. "Give me the boat hook!" Declan handed me the tool. "What are you planning?" "I'm not going to stop the disc. I'm going to make the disc work for us." I stood on a shaky beam. waited for the cutout in the disc to align with the elevator chain. "Sorry, Dad," I whispered. And with force, I drove the hook into a chain link, simultaneously catching the edge of the flywheel. Crash! The sound was as if lightning had struck the tower. The flywheel's inertia yanked the elevator chain. Somewhere above, brakes screeched and Silas screamed. The elevator slammed to a halt. The jolt must have clacked teeth together. The flywheel itself jammed. The boat hook bent into an arc, but held. Steel bit into steel. Sparks fountain sprayed the ceiling. The path was open. "Run!" I dashed into the opening, slipping under the frozen disc, radiating friction heat. Declan followed. We flew up the final stairs, lungs burning, muscles screaming. We kicked out the hatch and tumbled into the space beneath the dome.
It was the top of the world, a glass dome beyond which Isolde raged. Lightning struck lightning rods, bathing the hall in stroboscopic light. In the middle of the hall stood a platform where the stuck elevator had just crawled out, grinding and listing. Silas was trying to open the bent elevator grate. His face was twisted with rage. The cryo container had tipped over, but was intact. The automaton was trying to tear the bars open. Declan picked up a heavy piece of rebar that had fallen from the wall. "Hey, Crow," he bellowed over the thunder. "You forgot to check your luggage." Silas turned. In his eyes, I saw real fear. Not of us, of what was behind our backs. I turned around. In the center of the hall stood a massive clock mechanism. The face looked outward, into the storm. But on the reverse side, where we stood, a timer was mounted on the main axle. The digits burned red. 000059. "You idiots!" Silas shrieked, banging his cane on the elevator grate. "You broke the hoist. We can't get Kronos to the roof." "We don't intend to," I said, stepping forward. I pulled my small screwdriver from my pocket, a ridiculous weapon against the end of the world. But I knew where to strike. "Clara," Declan nodded at the timer. "What happens when it hits 0? "Purge protocol," I answered, never taking my eyes off Silas. "It's not gas and not water." I looked at the glass dome above us, battered by lightning. Father turned the tower into a giant lightning rod. When the timer triggers, it disconnects the ground. All the storm's energy will strike here. And we turn into plasma, along with the island. Silas finally kicked out the grate. The automaton stepped forward, shielding its master with its steel body. "Kill them," Crow commanded. Declan adjusted his grip on the rebar. "Well, princess, last dance?"
The automaton moved in jerks, with the eerie sound of servos like a fork scraping a plate. It was a caricature of a human, a faceless mask, a body of polished steel and brass. Declan stepped to meet it. "Hey, Tin Man!" he shouted, wielding the rebar like a spear with his good hand. "Your warranty expired!" The robot threw a manipulator arm forward. The blow had such force that had it hit the chest, Declan's ribs would have turned to dust. Declan rolled away, but the floor was slick with oil. He fell to his knees. The automaton raised a leg to stomp. "Leave him!" Silas shouted. He stood by the control panel, trying to jam buttons with his cane. "The elevator! Clara, fix the elevator, or I will shoot your spine out!" I looked at the timer. The digits pulsed red, in sync with my heart. I knew what the mechanism was doing. Above our heads, under the very dome, 2 massive copper contacts began to separate. It was the grounding switch. As soon as the gap became sufficient, the air would ionize. The lightning caught by the spire wouldn't go to Earth. It would strike the nearest mass of metal. Us. "There is no elevator!" I screamed, backing toward the wall, away from the center of the hall. "Silas, look up! The breaker! We are in a Faraday cage that's about to be turned inside out!" Silas snapped his head up. He saw the separating contacts. For a split second, understanding dawned on his face. He was a smart man. Evil, but smart. He understood the physics. "Take the container!" he shrieked at the automaton. "Cover me!"
"No!" I screamed. Declan jumped onto the steel doll's back, wrapping his good arm around its neck, clutching the rebar in his damaged one. He drove the iron rod into the joint of the robot's cervical vertebrae. Sparks sprayed like a fountain. The automaton thrashed, losing orientation. Its gyros went haywire. Instead of protecting Silas, the robot crashed right onto him, pinning the old man to the floor with its weight. "Get it off!" Silas yelled, trying to crawl out from under the 200-pound machine. His cane flew aside. "Declan, I'll pay you $1,000,010." Declan rolled off the robot, breathing heavily. He was 6 feet from the deadly pileup. He looked at Silas.
Keep the change, he rasped. Declan crawled toward me. The breaker above had separated almost completely. Blue arcs of static electricity danced between the contacts. The hair on my arms stood up. The air smelled of ozone so strongly it tasted sour. The capsule with Lily stood in the middle between us and Silas, uncovered, defenseless. Lightning will strike the highest point of least resistance. Right now, that's the automaton, but the arc will tag everything within a 10-foot radius. Lily will burn. I had to choose. Run for cover, the stairwell, or I lunged forward. Clara, stop! Declan screamed, drowned in the thunderclap. I fell onto the cryo container, covering the glass with my body. I ripped off my coat and threw it over the metal parts of the capsule. Insulator. Wool is a bad insulator, but it's all I have. I pressed against the cold side of the box, squeezed my eyes shut, and started counting. 1, 2, 3. The light wasn't bright. Light ceased to exist. The world turned into pure white pain. The sound of the strike was so dense it hit me in the chest like a sledgehammer. Crack, boom.
I felt the floor jump. Through closed eyelids, I saw purple veins of discharge. The smell of cooking meat and melting plastic filled the air. Silas's scream was short. It cut off on a high note, replaced by crackling. I was thrown. The shockwave from the discharge point hurled the container, and me with it, sideways toward the wall. I hit my head. Consciousness blinked like a bulb during a power surge. Silence. Ringing, cottony silence. And then the sound of rain. The glass dome was gone. Shards rained down on us along with icy drops of the storm. I opened my eyes. In the center of the hall where Silas and the automaton had lain was a black scorch mark. The robot's metal had melted, turning into a shapeless statue. Of Silas remained. I tried not to look. The parquet around them was smoking. Clara. The voice came from the stairwell. Declan. He was alive. He managed to dive into the hatch. I tried to stand. My whole body ached, muscles cramped from residual charge. I looked at the container. The glass had cracked but hadn't shattered. The LEDs were dead, but the liquid inside was clear. Lily. She was still floating there, in her endless sleep. The tower shuddered. The lightning strike hadn't gone without consequences. The support beams, already damaged by time and our interference, began to groan. The floor under my foot tilted, 5 degrees, then 10. We defeated Silas, but we were still on top of a stone needle crumbling to pieces in the middle of an Atlantic storm. Move! Declan climbed out of the hatch. He was black with soot, his hair standing on end. This whole thing is coming down. The container! I gripped the capsule handle. I'm not leaving her. It weighs 400 pounds. We can't take it down the stairs. The floor lurched again. A crack ran from the center to the wall, cutting us off from the exit. The cryo containers started rolling. The floor tilted toward the hole blown in the tower wall by the explosion. Hold it! Declan yelled. We both grabbed the box, which dragged us into the abyss, into the raging black sky and sea below.
Boston in December was gray, wet, and smelled of roasted chestnuts. But here, inside my workshop on Newberry Street, it smelled only of teak, varnish, and old time. I sat at the workbench, assembling the escapement of an 18th century mantel clock. The tweezers in my right hand didn't tremble. The springs snapped into place with a soft, satisfied click. Tick, tock. Perfect. I set the tool down and rubbed my shoulder. It still ached before snow, a memory of hitting the water. Sometimes closing my eyes, I still saw it. The cargo dirigible cable, taut as a string. The screech of the carabiner as we lowered the coffin down into the churning sea. The free fall when the tower finally gave up and collapsed, taking my father's secrets and Silas Crow's body with it. We survived only because Kronos was designed like a bathyscaphe. The container floated. We clung to it in freezing water for 4 hours until the Coast Guard picked up the emergency beacon signal. I looked at the calendar. A month and 3 days had passed. The door chime jingled, not demanding like customers in a rush,
but confident. I knew who it was before turning around. I recognized the sound of his footsteps, heavy but careful, as if he were afraid to break the silence of my shop. "You changed the lock," Declan said instead of hello. I spun around on my swivel chair. He stood in the doorway, brushing snow off a new leather jacket. His left arm was out of the sling, but he was still favoring it. The scar above his brow had faded but remained forever, a reminder. "The old lock was too simple," I replied, taking off my work loop. "Anyone with a hairpin could get in." "I didn't use a hairpin, I used charm." He walked to the counter, placing a paper bag on the glass. The smell of good coffee and croissants wafted out. "How is she?" "Stable." I took the coffee, hot. St. Jude's Clinic asks few questions if you pay cash. The doctors say her metabolism is unique. They've never seen anything like it. I said it's a rare genetic condition. "And the implants?" I told them it was experimental treatment in Europe. They believe it, for now. I took a sip. The coffee was bitter, just how I like it. "I'm looking for a surgeon, Declan. A neurosurgeon who can extract Aegis without killing her. It will take years, but I'm in no rush." Declan nodded. He looked around the workshop. Shelves with clocks, pendulums, automaton parts. "Cozy here. Lots of ticking. Doesn't drive you mad?" "It's rhythm," I smiled. "Order. What about you? Your friends from the syndicate?" Declan reached into the inner pocket of his jacket. For a second, my heart skipped a beat, a habit of expecting a weapon, but he pulled out a small book in a battered leather binding. Father's diary, the very one we left on the library desk when we fled the crushing walls. "I thought it burned," I whispered, touching the cover. "I went back for it," Declan said simply. "While you were messing with the panel in the Gallery of Whispers, I thought it might be worth more than money." "And you gave it to the syndicate?" "I gave them photocopies of the first 10 pages, where the alloy formulas are. That was enough to clear my debt and cover the plane repairs. But the original," he slid the book toward me, "the original belongs to you. There are things in there that shouldn't hit the market." I opened the diary. The pages smelled of smoke and dampness. Declan walked around the counter. He breached my personal zone, but this time I didn't want to retreat. He stood next to me, leaning his hip against the workbench. "Did you read the epilogue?" he asked quietly. "I thought that was the end." "Look at the flyleaf, under UV light, or just at the right angle. You're the master of seeing the hidden." I picked up my old loupe, the one with the cracked glass that opened the capsule. I caught the glint of the lamp on the back cover of the diary. There were numbers embossed there, coordinates, and one word, Antarctica. "It's not over, Clara." Declan's voice turned serious. "Ouroboros was Station 1. Your father didn't hide everything. There is a Station 2. And if the syndicate finds out, they won't find out." I snapped the diary shut. A sharp sound, like a gunshot. "Because we will find it first."
Declan grinned. In that smile was everything. Danger, excitement, and a promise.
We? Are you cutting me in, Gear Princess?
"I need transport." I looked him in the eye. "And someone who knows how to break things I can't unlock." He leaned closer. His face was so close I could feel the heat of his skin. "I charge high rates." "I know," I whispered. "I'll fix your soul, remember? Warranty repair." He didn't argue. He kissed me. It didn't feel like a storm. It felt like a complex, perfectly tuned mechanism finally starting to work. No glitches, no excess friction. Just warmth and the certainty that as long as we are enmeshed, the world won't fall apart. Outside the window, snow fell, covering the city in a white blanket, but the clocks in my workshop kept ticking, counting down the time to the next expedition. The end.